All right, looks like we are live. What's up, everyone? Is the awesemo.com NHL Hit the Ice show. Got a 3-game slate to talk about very quickly. On the contrary is going on. I believe it's going to start up here pretty soon. So after you're done here, feel free to go check that out. Awesemo, Evan Silva, Chris Spags breaking down the Week 17 slate, which I'm pretty excited to play after a profitable Week 16 for me, one of few for NFL for me this year. So hopefully going out on a high note in NFL, but we do have some NHL games to talk about as well. Hopefully you guys had a pretty successful return to NHL last night. Looked like it wasn't going to be, it looked like it was going to be a really bad night for me for a little bit there, but got about 80% of my entry fees back, so it was very good. I was glad to see that because we were playing those top-heavy tournaments like that. What was it, $5 yesterday? That if you don't have one, I think my highest finish was like 40th, maybe like 50th. So when that happens and you're getting anywhere close to breaking even, that is definitely a win. So was not too disappointed with losing a little bit last night. Felt good to fire up some hockey, watch the slate. I think Steve was right about there being some unexpected stuff happening. Like you saw, well, the Wild specifically, I'm thinking about that game. Watched a good amount of that, and the Wild dominated the game. The Blackhawks just had a couple power play goals, scored one early. Dubnyk got pulled. Dubnyk looked very bad. So who knows what's going on there, but some surprises like the Devils in Boston with no Taylor Hall, upset. Who would have saw that coming? We certainly did not. So it was an interesting night in NHL. Dubnyk stinks. Yeah. I mean, can't argue with you after last night. I don't know. Just seems like he doesn't really have confidence right now. That's what the beats are saying. That's what Boudreau is kind of alluding to as well. This one, tonight we've got pretty much 4 stacks that I think people are going to start their lineups with. If they're double stacking, it's either going to be Florida 1, and then Columbus 1, and then the Tavares and the Matthews lines. So those are going to be how pretty much I think everyone starts their lineups in large field tournaments, which is smart. There's a really good chance that either 1 or 2 or 3 of those lines goes off and gets there. That's how I'm starting almost all of my lineups. So I don't think I'm going to have anything out of the ordinary to tell you guys. Maybe we could work on some lineup construction stuff near the end of the show. Probably won't even go for the whole hour because it's just 3 games. But yeah, feel free to share how you did last night. How'd you guys? What'd you think of the tournaments? What'd you think of the NHL games? And also we can kind of talk about who do you guys think is going to be the chalkiest tonight? I was going back and forth with some people this morning, just trying to get a feel for, like, is Florida 1 going to be the most popular? Is Columbus 1? Is one of the Toronto lines? I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty even. My read could be completely off. But, like, you look at these totals in all these games, 3.3 for the Leafs, 3.3 for the Blue Jackets, 3.2 for the Panthers. So nothing crazy there. No one's, like, a massive favorite. Florida 1 chalkiest, but not by a lot. That's kind of what I was thinking as well. I mean, my ownership's going to be pretty spread out too, so I'm not all that worried about it on a 3-game slate. We don't have Colorado 1 for the first time on a 3-gamer for the first time in, like, feels like forever. It's usually just Colorado 1 or bust, and they're 40%, 45%, and you just get to sweat them if you fade them, and if you went all in on them, they seem to, well, actually, they've gotten there quite a bit, so it's not like Colorado 1 is really disappointed all that often in these short slates, but good thing we don't really have to worry about that tonight. You've got a few options. If you're stuck between some of these options, just take the one you think is going to be lower owned, because there's a lot right at the top that I think is very similar. Columbus going to get steamrolled tonight. I mean, I don't think they're going to get steamrolled. They played last night, but I don't know. Why do you say they're going to get steamrolled, Scott? Do you think just Toronto's better? Could be. I mean, if you think Columbus is going to get steamrolled, then play. You should be playing a bunch of Toronto, both lines, because it's not like there's going to be a hard match in that game. At least I don't think so. We've seen it with Columbus a little bit, but I don't really know how to read the line matching for most of the games tonight, except for maybe this first one. So let's just start talking about these games quick, and then you guys can tell me what you want to do afterwards. If you want to see Cruncher for a certain site, I don't think, I was looking today to see if anything happened with the Yahoo overlay for NHL, but it just seems like they don't have plans to do it yet, which sucks, but that's just the way it goes. NHL gets lost in the fold with NBA and NFL season. Maybe after NFL is done, they'll start to fire up some NHL overlay contests. Who knows? Maybe not. I don't think Columbus is going to flop, no. Toronto's better, just tough to pinpoint where the scoring comes from. Yeah, that's my issue with Toronto, basically, always. Maybe for the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, DK doesn't even do anything special for the playoffs. They'll probably have a bunch of showdown stuff. The showdowns were pretty fun last year, but I didn't have a ton of success with them, if I remember correctly. MMEing in showdowns, I think, is the way to go, even if you're not an MME player. Like, diversifying as much as possible in those is how I would do it. Okay, 2.9 implied total for the Canadians, 3.2 for the Panthers. Antti Niemi, Roberto Luongo, and right off the bat, we're probably going to see a hard match with the Barkov line going up against Domi Drouin and Paul Byron. We don't have a huge sample on the Canadians' top line with Byron, but we know Domi and Drouin are super high event both ways, so it just sets up to be a really good matchup for Barkov, Huberdeau, and Dadonov. I love when Dadonov is with Barkov. They're expensive, but there's a ton of other lines. There's a ton of value in the Ottawa Islanders game, and you're not going to be sneaky if you play anyone in the top 6 tonight, because everything fits together pretty well. So Florida 1 going to be either first or second highest exposure for me, right up there with Columbus 1. I wrote them up earlier. Kind of thought they would be the somewhat clear chalk earlier in the day, but I think they're going to be pretty close to Toronto and Columbus as well. So I'm just trying to avoid overthinking ownership tonight. I really, really love Florida 1. I think it's hard not to, especially if you think they're going to go up against Domi Drouin and Byron. If for some reason they go up against Danault, Tatar, and Gallagher, I would like to avoid them. Not avoid them, but I would like to have less of them than I do. But as of now, my read is that they're going to go up against Domi and Drouin, because that's been the line that's doing the most scoring for this season. On the other side, I think I prefer the Danault, Tatar, Gallagher line. I have more exposure to them in my first few crunches compared to Montreal 1. I think Montreal 1 is also fine, but I think they're going to be higher owned than Montreal 2 by a pretty decent margin. And it's really hard not to like the Montreal 2 numbers. So that's really frustrating. They're like a Nashville 2, where you see all these great numbers and they rarely often get there. Or they rarely get there, I should say. Not great power play correlation with Gallagher on unit 1, Tatar on unit 2, and then Danault not on a unit. but they're going to get the better of the even strength matchups against Florida's second and third line. Not in love with Bjorkstrom, Vetrano, and Hoffman, but that would be the other Florida line that I would want to go to. I'm probably not dipping down to the McCann, Brouwer, Malgin line. And then if you want to get really punty, I think Montreal 3 will be a line that I'll at least have some exposure to. It's not going to be a lot, so I'll go to my last crunch that I just ran. I had them in about 7%. Yeah, 7% of my most recent crunch, and that's perfect. I think that's going to be above the field, and they are also going to get very favorable matchups because outside of Florida 1, there's really not much to offer for these forwards for depth on the Panthers. Yandel and Shea Weber are your power play 1 quarterbacks. I actually do have a good amount of Keith Yandel because I'm planning to run mostly 4-3-1s tonight, and Yandel fits in nicely with Florida 1 top power play correlation with all 3 of them as well. Gonna skate a ton with them at even strength as well. You could also play Ekblad. The problem is he just doesn't correlate to any of them at 5-on-4. So nothing wrong with Ekblad. He's 4,100 and gonna skate a ton with Florida 1. But if you can, I would try to get in Keith Yandel, of course. Petrie and Weber. So I did forget just now that Petrie was on the top power play, but he is actually still listed there. He's 5,200, a little bit of a discount off of Weber. I think I actually have Petrie projected for more points. Let's see. Petrie, yeah, they're basically right next to each other. They're within like a third of a point. Yeah, so, I don't have a huge lean here, but I like the little bit of savings you get with Petrie. Osmo likes Weber as the better raw point play, which is understandable. I can't really argue with that. Just for me, I'm going to have more exposure to Petrie. That's just how it's going to go for tonight's slate. Not really coming up with much on Mike Riley. He just doesn't really do all that much, even when he's getting 20-plus minutes. Just power play exposure. I suppose you could do worse, but that's really all I've got on the Montreal side. If I'm going to another like one-off defenseman for the Panthers, it would probably be Mike Matheson for 4,500. Going to be super low owned, and if 2 of these lines that fit together go off, the defensemen are going to decide it, and Matheson's going to be like 5-6% owned maybe. And he's got a big shot. He does shoot it quite a bit, and he's just going to be so much lower owned than some of these other guys in his range. So I don't really mind Matheson there. All right. Oh, and goalies, I'll say it as I always do. 6 goalies to choose from. I don't really feel great about any of them. I actually do have quite a bit of both of these goalies because I think if this one stays somewhat low scoring, like if it's 3-2, something like that, I think you're going to see a big score from the winning goalie. And that's why I do have, I'm expecting a bunch of shots, both sides here. Hopefully, for the goalie's sake, these shots come at, they come at 5-on-5 because both of these teams have issues on the power play. So if they can stay out of the box, you might see some big scores from the goalies, and they're both 7,600, both fair prices for a game that is going to be pretty closely contested in my eyes. All right. Senators, Islanders, 2.8 implied total for the Senators, 3.4 for the Islanders. Mike McKenna is your goalie for Ottawa. Robin Lehner for the Islanders, and this is the value game. If you're even strength stacking tonight, basically any line in this game gets you exposure to any other of these top lines in the other 2 games. So I guess I don't have a great read on how highly owned these lines are going to be. I think both the Nelson Lee Hosang line and the Barzal Beauvillier Bailey line are going to be 15 to 20% in large field. They're both going to be popular. It's Ottawa. People know how bad Ottawa is. Maybe people don't know how bad, like how big their splits are. Defensively, on the road, they're just like all-time bad. At home, they're still bad, but not as bad. So love attacking Ottawa when they're on the road. The Islanders PP, Brian asks. Let's see what they're at for the season. Let's see. In December, they are 15%, 5-4-33. That's not great. For the season, I think they're about average. Let's see. A little below average. They're 23rd, 15.7% for the season. But Ottawa's penalty kill is god-awful. Anyways, I think I do prefer the Lee, Nelson, Hosang line. I would have really liked it if Everly was playing and getting power play one time. But now you do get Nelson listed on the top power play, so you still get two guys from this Nelson-Lee line. I usually go to the line that has Anders Lee. I don't know if that's like a hot take. If people like Barzal, I like Barzal as much as the next guy, but like I'm not a big Josh Bailey guy. He's fine for 4,500 in the context of a stack. He's just never someone I get to. He's got like the nice power play one tag and all that and the low price, but I think he just gets way overplayed for what he actually is. So I do prefer Nelson, Lee, and Hosang. That being said, it's going to be somewhat of an even split. I think, if I'm putting Islanders in 35 or 40% of my lineups, I'm probably having 22% of the Nelson, Lee, Hosang line, whereas like 13 to 15% of this Barzal line. So I'm not taking a huge stand either way. But if I was making limited lineups, I would prioritize Nelson, Lee, and Hosang together. All right. On the other side, I don't really know how line matching is going to go in this game. If you do, or if you have an inkling, please feel free to share, because I just don't know if they're going to treat Duchesne as the top center or White as the top center. And now with Hosang in there, are you really going to match the Nelson, Lee, Hosang line against what you think is opposing top competition? Because I wouldn't. Anyways, once again, prefer the Ottawa top line here. White, Tkachuk, and Stone. And that it's going to be a pretty big stand, bigger than the Islanders' top two lines. Going to have quite a bit of White, Tkachuk, and Stone. They're going to come close to hitting the cap if I do indeed set one tonight. They're just too cheap. Mark Stone is too cheap. I like Tkachuk, even though he's listed on the second power play unit. 5,100. The Sens have been kind of switching things up on the power play. Guys have been going on and off the units. Whether it's going to be Ryan or Tkachuk up there, it doesn't really matter all that much. The Islanders have been solid at limiting high danger chances. We always talk about it, like how are they getting these results? But they're funneling shots from lower and medium danger, and or two lower and medium danger spots instead of those high danger chances that they were giving up last season. So maybe getting a little bit more out of their players than what they were last season, even though they're still not great. So yeah, it's going to be White, Stone, Tkachuk for me. Duchesne would be a guy I want in like a one-off spot. I'm not really in love with his line mates, Zach Smith and Ryan Zingle. Less power play correlation you get there. And then this third line for the Senators, I just don't really think you need to go there. I like a third line way more than them in the next game. I usually like to get these depth lines when they're at home anyways, these third and fourth lines. Really third lines, I don't play many fourth lines, but they're all three wingers on DK, so I'm probably going to pass there. Don't think I ended up with any of them. You kind of have to force them in if you're building crunches, and they're not really, I don't think, worth forcing in with Bodker, Tierney, and Ryan together. Thomas Chabot, probably going to be, once again, my highest exposed player. He was over 50% for me in this last crunch, and he's probably going to remain there. He's going to be my highest owned defenseman. He's going to be on virtually all of my Ottawa 1 stacks. He's going to be on the few Ottawa 2 stacks I have, I'm sure. And then as a one-off, I'm just going to have him all over. Peripheral machine, under 6K. Has slowed down a little bit, but you still got an Ottawa team who has a good power play. They've had a good power play all season. And then the Islanders kill just above 78% for the year. Nothing to be wary of there. So I just love the floor with Chabot. You could make a case for Seth Jones or Morgan Riley ahead of him, but Chabot's going to be my guy tonight, and pretty convincingly. DK listed Ben Harper as a right winger. I don't know where that came from. So if you are doing, if you are making lineups on Cruncher, Cruncher didn't catch this either. You have to exclude Ben Harper. Otherwise, if you're stacking this line, this Smith, Duchesne, Zingle line, he will get mixed in there because he is listed on the second line. So if you just blindly set team stack rules and don't X out Harper, you're going to end up with not these three guys in all of your Ottawa 2 stacks. So just be aware of that. It's annoying, but if people don't catch that possible edge there, I mean, I don't really want to talk about the game theory. Playing a $2,500 Ben Harper, he's okay. He's whatever as a defenseman. Liked him more when he was playing up with Chabot, but if you're punting on these Senators, I think I would rather just go with DeMello, Chabot's line mate. Gonna see 20-plus minutes, I'm sure. And none of these other guys, CC or Boro, whatever his name is, I'm really looking at. It's all Chabot for me. Oh, I completely forgot about Lejoie. Lejoie would be the other guy that I would want at 4K, but he's listed right here. As you can see, our lineup builder's messed up because of the Ben Harper right wing situation. But if Lejoie is in, then yeah, we'll enjoy him for 4K. I'm just gonna have an overwhelming amount of Chabot. Yeah, his ceiling is so high, as is his floor. What do you think about Josh Ho-Sang playing up? Yeah, that's a good spot. I mean, you're playing with Lee and a capable center, and he's offensively gifted, not good defensively, but he's 2,700 getting power play time and playing top line minutes. So hopefully he sticks there. It's really hard not to like him as a value, I think. A guy who is hard to like even as a value, Nicoletti, 2,900. Like all these Islanders, as you see on Osmo's rankings, are going to come up as A values. They're just all so cheap. I want to get in Pulak as much as possible. Taze is fine for a min-salary defenseman, but it's going to be mostly Pulak for me. No Thomas Hickey tonight. So just not that I would want Hickey over Pulak or even Hickey over Letty, but it's going to be Pulak, Boychuk, and probably a sprinkle of Nick Letty. I mean, $2,900 for a guy that plays 20-plus minutes and gets power play one time. Like, at some point, he's got to have a 2-assist game, right? Just by virtue of being on the ice. Has he even done that this season? I don't even know if he has. Like, he just doesn't do much of anything. Does he have... He's got 1, 2 2-point game. 3 2-point games. Okay. He's got 3 2-assist games. So, just a random 6-shot on goal game. I don't like to just look at results, but he just doesn't attempt shots either. So he's kind of frustrating to own at DFS. Another guy, shiny, power play 1 tag. And you got Pulak, who's way more expensive, but on the power play 2. But this, like, as a one-off, I won't get to Letty. The only reason I'm getting to Letty, even for 5%, is because he correlates with both of the top 2 lines if somehow the Islanders do get there on the power play, which you easily could see against Ottawa, who just completely sucks on the penalty kill. Under 75% for the season. All right, that's going to do it, I think, for this game. Last game of the night, probably the most fun game to watch, I would think. Toronto Maple Leafs and Columbus Blue Jackets, 3.3 implied total for both teams here. Looking like it could be Garrett Sparks going up against Sergei Bobrovsky. So no, well, not necessarily, but looks like it's going to be no Freddie Anderson for the Leafs. That is a pretty decent downgrade. So I would upgrade the Blue Jackets forwards a little bit. Panarin, Dubois, Atkinson, those guys are going to be, like I said, they're going to be right there with Florida 1 as my highest exposed line. They're awesome. They're awesome on home ice. There's not really a matchup defensively that I'm worried about against Toronto. They're going to see the most minutes. They're all on the power play together, and they correlate really well with two defensemen that are, they're just these guys are going to play a ton of minutes as well. So running 4-3-1s, it's almost impossible not to get to these guys in some capacity. They're going to, like I said, basically hit the cap for me. The way I'm going to hopefully differentiate myself with Columbus, and you're going to want to keep an eye on these two players, Duclair and Anderson, where they end up in pregame skate. If the Columbus Blue Jackets beat writers decide they want to tweet the lines out this time, but if you do see morning or pregame skate lines, pay attention to where Duclair and Anderson are, because last game, which was last night, they swapped spots for a while. So you saw Anderson with Foligno and Wenberg. I'm hoping we see Bjorkstrand, Jenner, and Anderson. This is the line I really want to play. They don't have great numbers just yet, but they're going to see a bunch of time against both the Kadri line and the fourth line for Toronto. So they're going to be a line that I'm going to be overweight on. Even if it's Jenner, Bjorkstrand, Duclair, I would expect that line to be very high event, but I want Anderson on there. I think you're just going to see a bunch of shot attempts for this line and hopefully scoring chances, and they're another one that fits with basically every other line. So, including Columbus 1 if you want to do a 6-man stack, which I'm certainly going to have some of tonight. On the Toronto side, like I said, I don't think there's going to be a hard match. We kind of talked about that earlier. So for me, it just comes down to which line do I want to play the most. And I think for me, it's still going to be it's going to be Tavares, Marner, and Johnson. Tavares and Marner just so good. Not that Matthews is awesome, but I just give the edge to these two guys on the top power play for the Leafs. I don't know how it's going to go with ownership. It seems like Matthews is always the highest owned guy, but Tavares and Marner together are higher owned than any one of Matthews and Kapanen or Matthews and Marlowe. At least that's how it seems like it goes. I'm going to be pretty close to even on them with a lean to Tavares and Marner and Andreas Johnson. This third line for the Maple Leafs, I think, is all right. I don't really love playing Connor Brown, but Kadri and Nylander together are pretty cheap. And then if you add in Connor Brown, if you so choose, you can get a super cheap stack on a team with a high implied total, just like you can on the other side with the Jenner line. So those lines could possibly go up against each other for a good amount of time. Duclair's not good defensively. Bjorkstrand's not going to be great defensively, nor is Jenner. So hard not to like the depth lines on both of these teams. All right. Defenseman here. I had Riley as my second highest owned guy behind Shabbat. But there is a big drop off there. $6,500 for Morgan Riley is super expensive. Every time I say that, he has a 3 to 4 point game. It's just uncanny, the assist upside he has. But when you play with guys like Tavares and Marner and Matthews on the power play, it's hard not to get there quite a bit, even for $6,500. Other guys you can look at, I'm getting a decent amount of Zaitsev, which I hate. I don't like playing Zaitsev really at all, but like he's playing 17, 22, 21, 18, 20 minutes. He's another one that doesn't really do a ton, but he does block shots as well, and we're expecting to see a bunch of shots on both sides here. So somewhat of a floor play. I don't even want to say he's got a great floor for 2,800, but Osmo does have him as an A value. So I'm kind of right there with him as far as he's going to be one of the guys I mix in this below 3K level. Going to have more of Zaitsev than a guy like Hainsey or Dermott, or I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, Gardner. Really not going to end up with much of him at all. And then, like I said, it's going to be Jones, Werenski in that order. And then the other guy that I will have some exposure to is Ryan Murray for 4,200, just because he gets that second power play time. 4,200. He's not great either. I think you play as many of the power play 1 quarterbacks as you can, and that's what I'm doing in my lineups. So nothing crazy. I don't think I've got any wild takes on this slate. Hoping we see some pretty great hockey. I think it is, for a 3-game slate, it's an okay MME night. I feel like I've covered my bases pretty thoroughly. So I don't know if you guys want to see anything as far as Fantasy Cruncher or different lineup construction types you want to talk about, but we've got about 20 minutes if we so choose. Otherwise, we can get out of here, and you guys can go watch On the Contrary, which is going on right now. By the way, once again, I shouldn't even have, no one should have to say this, but play on Yahoo this week if you're playing NFL and don't play a ton of volume. Like if you play, 220, if you play below $300, you should be playing a ton on Yahoo. A ton of that on Yahoo. They're guaranteed overlay once again. Hopefully the contest fills this week. I played last week. Now it wasn't free money. I still had to have good lineups, but I did profit, and I don't consider myself much of a even good NFL DFS player. Yeah, if you can't play in Yahoo in Canada, that sucks. But if you are, if you live in the U.S. and you don't live in one of the banned states, then play on Yahoo. There's no excuse. I mean, yeah, maybe you don't like the interface or whatever of the site. It's tough to multi-enter, but you can make 10 hand-built lineups, and it doesn't take that long. You can use Fantasy Cruncher. If you have Fantasy Cruncher, you can use the Yahoo Fantasy Cruncher and then just copy the lineups. I did it last week. It took me about 15 minutes, and I profited. So that's what I would do. It's just logical. You should support this kind of stuff. You just never, ever, ever see stuff like this in DFS. So I wasn't really around when DFS was in the major boom. I wasn't playing a ton, but guaranteed overlay is outrageous. 250K of it, 3 straight weeks. So good for Yahoo. If you want to use our promo code, you get a free $30 deposit bonus. So, or I shouldn't say free bonus. They'll match $30 of your deposit bonus if you use promo code AWESOMO when you sign up. So even if you're not using our promo code, even if you've deposited before on Yahoo, still play there. Don't waste your time with DK and FanDuel if you're not playing over $300 or whatever it is, however much you can get in the guaranteed overlay tournaments. Yahoo pays out faster than FanDuel or DK. Got my dollars back in 7 hours once. Oh, from FanDuel and DraftKings. Favorite defenseman for the Panthers? It's Yandel for me. Basically all my favorite defensemen, I would rank all the defensemen on their teams. Power play quarterback 1 first, and then the rest of the guys afterwards, except for the Islanders. I like Pulock the best. So if Nicoletti beats me, I'm sure I'm going to be underweight on him. If he beats me tonight, I'm just going to take the L with Nicoletti. But I'm hoping Pulock outscores him by a decent margin, and I can hopefully gain an edge that way. If you guys do enjoy the show, please continue to like and subscribe. It does help us do this for free. I don't think I mentioned that on the show yesterday, but a bunch of you guys liked it. So thank you if you did give us a like yesterday. We don't have a ton to promote right now. Steve does have his MMA article coming out tonight. Just like a couple site things. We do have NFL ownership out. So if you are an all-access member, if you subscribe to NFL and you just found your way here playing some NHL tonight, the ownership projections are out for the weekend. Definitely want to take advantage of those. Watch On the Contrary after this show. Pulock 2 goals. Yeah, I hope so. I'd be really happy with that. Toronto third line tonight is going to eat against Jenner, Bjork, and Duclair. Could be. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. That's a really bad defensive line if it's Bjork, Duclair, and Jenner. So I think you might be onto something, Chris. You're a good player. You obviously know your stuff. So, is there anything anybody wants to see on good old Fantasy Cruncher? You can get a free week of Fantasy Cruncher if you sign up for a Fantasy Cruncher package with promo code HitTheIce. I'm just hitting all of the housekeeping stuff. Hit the Ice is the promo code. It's on your screen right now. Tomorrow, I think the slate is out already. Let's see. Yes, it's already out. Early slate, it's already out. Let's see. 11 games on the main slate. So I'm basically going to have my lineups built by probably like a half an hour after I'm done with the show. And then I'll start looking at some stuff for the Saturday games. 14 in total. 11 main games. I wonder if they're doing this $40 tournament they always do, the Saturday shootout or whatever. No, the Avs broke up line 1? Why? Why would you ever do that? Who would do that? Someone get hurt? Let's see. Nieto on the top line? Come on. You're trolling. I'm trying to look on this Twitter list and see. Ugh, they moved down Landeskog. What's Nieto tomorrow? Is he on the main slate? $3,100 and he's gonna play with McKinnon and Rantanen. I mean, enjoy that. That's going to be crazy chalk. Oh, against the Blackhawks, too. Yeah, so you can just go McKinnon, Rantanen, and Nieto. And they are, what, 18-8 to stack together? That's outrageous. Oh, that's annoying. I mean, obviously not going to be the same line without Landeskog, but I'd probably play myself skating next to Rantanen and McKinnon at this point. So for 3,100 for sure. Give me that. I'm not seeing where they were broken up. Were they broken up last night? They lost 7 of 9. Yeah, they had that bad one to Chicago, but the Blackhawks, they've won like 3 or 4 straight. Avs PP. Oh, okay. Yeah, does anybody have anything else for tonight? Am I forgetting something to talk? Like, I feel like we talked through everything. It is a very straightforward slate for 3 games, and I'm not all that concerned about ownership. So I just felt like there wasn't really a ton that we needed to talk about out of the ordinary here. Leonard is 6-0-3, 170 goals against average, almost 950 save percentage versus Ottawa. I mean, I don't really pay attention to that, but I I think Leonard's a fine play regardless. Islanders goalies see a ton of shots for the most part, and like we said, low danger shots or medium danger shots, and not a lot of the high danger variety, which is a complete 180 from what we saw last season. So this Toronto game is going to be a shootout or a game of goalies. Yeah, these expected high event games, like, so we don't have Frederik Andersen, but if it was Andersen and Bobrovsky, like, having a bunch of exposure to both sides of that, I think, would be the smart way to go. Bobrovsky's going to be probably my highest exposed goalie, just because, he hasn't had the greatest season, but he is still one of the most talented goalies, and you're expecting him to see a ton of shots. So anytime that's the case and the goalie's good, they've got to be in your pool at the very least. But going to be near the top of mine. I wonder if there's any good contests for the early tomorrow. Has anybody looked at this? Oh wait, that's today. What's the showdown game for tonight? Columbus, Toronto? Okay. That would be the good one to do a showdown for. How's this? Maybe I'll play some of that. Get more volume. Because there's really not a ton below the $8 that you can play. There's no mini-max tonight. Do they seriously? They don't even have an $8 for this early slate? Why? There's just nothing to play that you can multi-enter? Maybe they just haven't put it up yet. Sparks ownership below 10%. I don't think Sparks is terrible. I mean, I think 10 to 12 is a pretty decent number. I don't know. The home goalies are going to get the majority of the ownership. And then after them, it's probably going to be Sparks after that, So if you just give Bobrovsky, Leonard, and Luongo, like, let's say you give them like 25% each. I know they're, you give them 75% of the total ownership. That leaves you with, 7 to 8 for Niemi, 7 to 8 for McKenna, and 10 to 12 for Sparks. I think that's about right. McKenna for me. None of these goalies are great plays tonight. I mean, there's rarely ever a goalie where I'm like, wow, gotta jam in X. It's just who fits based on what I'm trying to do or correlate with Fantasy Cruncher. The goalie position is so volatile, yet you can have Anton Khudobin, who was actually on quite a bit last night, just throw up 14.8 DK points and ruin a slate. I guess he didn't ruin it because he was like 1% on a 13 gamer. So, or like Delia for the Hawks. He had a big game. He had 10 plus. Yeah. Goalie's crazy, man. Crazy scoring. And then you got Dubnyk on the other end of the spectrum. Negative 1.8 or negative 2 or something like that. So, what's this? Yeah, I had some Delia. They were saying Delia on the broadcast that I was listening to. Maybe it is Delia. Picking goalies is an art form. That is not one I'm interested in wasting my time on, honestly. It's so random. So random. How many lineups tonight for me? I have 75 in that $8. I have not maxed the $8 that I'm aware of this season. I usually limit myself to 100. Just because if you max it, like you have to get like a top 3 or 4 finish to make your entries back, and that's just really tough to do. So I've been going like 70, 50 to 100, depending on the night, the size of the slate and stuff and such. But I feel like I can compete with 75 tonight. Do some 6-man stacks. I'll do some correlated goalie, some uncorrelated goalie. 20 is a good number for sure. You can get in all the low dollar stuff. You can put those in the $8 if you are into that kind of thing. I think there's a 15 max $33, which I'm thinking about putting 5 to 10 in there. We'll see how I feel once the crunch is done. But yeah, nothing crazy on this slate. I think just diversify as best you can and run different kinds of lineups tonight. So some correlated goalies, some uncorrelated. Do a 6-man if you feel really good about a team, or if you think a team can wreck the slate, whether it's Toronto or Columbus or Florida. I think those are underutilized on this kind of slate, and some of the top guys have been starting to do them. So do what those guys are doing. Do what Testosterone's doing. Do what Osmo's doing, and Tom, JK. That would be my advice. All right, I think that's about enough for today. I will probably be back tomorrow morning or early afternoon, depending on where you are located. But we'll have a show, and 11 games, 3 early. It'll be some time before that early slate, so we can quickly go over the 3-game early slate and talk through that. But enjoy the slate tonight. As always, stick within your bankroll means, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Give us a like and a subscribe if you do enjoy our show. Weekdays at 4 Eastern, Monday through Friday, and then Saturday show is usually to be determined. It's usually just myself, so come help me break it down tomorrow. Hit me up in Premium Slack, Twitter, whatever it is. I would love to help you out or talk some NHL DFS. Thanks for joining, guys. Good luck.